forever and ever. Oh, thank you. So tonight is the 13 principles of faith, and we're working on the 13th principle, which is specifically talking on about the resuscitation of the dead. If you look in the Yigdal, it's very similar in on page 14 or 15 in the Art Scroll Siddur. God will revive the dead in his kindness, blessed forever is his name, is his praised name. And that's it. God will revive the dead. Julie, would you mind just muting everyone, please? Thank you. Okay, the concept of Tchiat Hamitim, the concept of the revival of the dead, is, as we know, is one of the 13 principles.
You need to unmute now, Rabbi.
Moving so I can see. Thank you. Okay, so we're focusing on the revival of the dead, the resuscitation of the dead. The resuscitation of the dead is a concept which is very difficult for us to comprehend, and what the goal of the resuscitation of the dead is going to look like. Okay, tonight's class is going to be pretty unique in that we're going to follow a more Kabbalistic understanding of what the resuscitation of the dead is going to how it's going to take and what form it is going to take. But ultimately, what we're talking about is, in the simplest of understandings, the simplest idea is that we come into this world with a body, and our body is a physical body. It is an animalistic body in that it needs to eat, it needs to breathe, it needs its physical needs, and attached with the physical body is a spiritual soul. And the spiritual soul is that which empowers the body to make choices with regards to uplifting it from a spiritual perspective, or to bring it down from a spiritual aspect, right? The soul is the influencer of the body. So we're going to look at a Talmudic statement in that speaks about the resuscitation of the dead. And that is, you will find it in the Talmud, in Sanhedrin, page 90, Tzadi Amud Bet. There were numerous questions that were asked by our sages, which they're asked, where do we know that there will be a resuscitation of the dead in the Torah? Does it clearly say anywhere in the Torah that the dead will arise? What do you guys think? Doesn't seem to say it anywhere. There are numerous verses, so our sages say there are numerous verses which infer that there will be a resuscitation of the dead. For example, where God says to Moshe, you will die, instead of telling Moshe, you will die, it doesn't say hincha met, you will die, hincha, you will die. It's rather, it says, hincha shochev im avotecha, you will be lying with your forefathers, which gives off the inference that it infers that there will be, that death is a temporary. Death is a temporary. It's the idea of lying. It's not necessarily having a final point with it. There are twice, that I could find, 2 times that Cleopatra, the Queen of Alexandria, is mentioned in the Talmud, twice. One of them, she is mentioned as having asked Rabbi Meir, and this is the Gemara in Sanhedrin, where she asked Rabbi Meir about how the resuscitation of the dead will happen. Okay, how will the resuscitation of the dead happen? And here I'm just going to read word for word and read and translate word for word her request. Sha'ala Cleopatra Malkat Alexandrus. Cleopatra, the queen of Alexandria, she asked Rabbi Meir, Amra, she said, Yadana dechaye shachive. We understand that the living that the dead, those who are lying, will come back alive. Yadana, we know that the dead will come back alive. And then there's a quote, they will sprout forth like the blossoming of the ground. When the dead stand, again, Omdin arumim obulvushehem omdim. Do they stand naked or do they stand with their clothes? Amar la, he answered to her, Kal v'chomer michita. I'll bring you a proof that they do come back with clothes. In that, I'll bring you a proof it comes from the concept of wheat. Umachita shnikvera aruma, wheat, which is buried, naked. Yotza bekama levushin. It sprouts forth with numerous kernels that are covered with clothes. Tzadikin shnikverim bilvushehen al achat kama v'kama. The righteous that are buried with their clothes, how much more so will they sprout forth with their clothes?
But they're not buried with clothes. They're buried in a kittel.
Okay, so let's talk about how burial happens. The Jewish concept of burial, one of the advantages of moving to Portland was that there's a handful of people to do lots of jobs. And one day, the head of the Chevra Kadisha, everyone's aware of what a Chevra Kadisha is. Debbie, do you know what you didn't check it? You did. Okay. Chevra Kadisha, the head of the Chevra Kadisha in Portland, he walked up to me and he said, someone passed away and I need a third to help us with the Tara, with the purification. And I knew a young rabbi, I was definitely up to trying to impress. But anyways, I said yes, and that became the first of many opportunities for me to join the Chevra Kadisha and to participate in the Chevra Kadisha. What the Chevra Kadisha is about, the Chevra Kadisha is basically preparing a body for burial. Okay, and in truth, the preparation of the body that the Chevra Kadisha do is from a strong aspect, preparing the body not necessarily for the burial as much as preparing the body for the resuscitation, for the coming back. If a person were to never come alive, so why do we care whether the person is wearing clothes or not? Why do we care about certain things? What we do is, I actually heard this from Elisa Bueller, is that there's a purification process. That first they'll clean the body, just like a person who goes to the mikveh, they'll wash and clean the body before we go to the mikveh. And then they will pour water over the entire body. It's the only time the water is poured over the entire body. And then the person is dressed in a white kittel, in white linen clothes, almost as if to prepare them for something that's happening with the body afterwards. It's a fascinating concept. Why would you need to purify a body if the body is going to be buried, right? They're clearly, from a Jewish perspective, there's clearly a understanding that there is going to be an action going on with the body afterwards. Now, we don't understand exactly how that happens, how it manifests itself. We're going to try and understand a little bit tonight with how that happens and for what goal, what is the use, where does it go, where do we go with this concept of dead becoming resuscitated. Ultimately, what it means is that the body during death, it separates itself from the soul. And when the body is separate from the soul, so then the body, it continues, it disintegrates. It what's the word that I'm looking for? Decomposes. The concept of a body being revived is the concept of the body being rebuilt, and then the soul back and having an influence on it. Now, Cleopatra, the queen of Alexandria, she was not necessarily the most righteous individual. In fact, what's very fascinating is that the other story that Cleopatra is mentioned in the Talmud is that she wanted to analyze the difference between the development of male embryos and female embryos, and she had she used people that were going to be women who were going to be killed, and she tested them. It's not necessarily the most pleasant person or caring person, but Cleopatra seemed to care a lot about this resuscitation, the revival of the dead. And her question, what's her question? Her question is such an interesting question. She says, when the dead come back, are they going to be wearing clothes or not wearing clothes? And Rabbi Meir has to explain to her, of course they're coming back with clothes. So what we want to understand is, what do these clothes represent that Cleopatra is talking about? And ultimately, how is that associated to the revival of the dead? Why is it important for her to know whether we're going to have clothes or not? And why is it important to define this status? Or is it important if we come back clothes, without clothes? What do clothes represent? Okay, so what we want to do tonight is just talk about clothes, and then hopefully talk about how clothes influence us to some degrees, and then see where we can go with that with regards to coming back from the dead. Fair? Yes, everyone? Okay. My blue shirt, my pink shirt, my new pink shirt. Yeah, my pink shirt. Okay. How do clothes influence us? What do clothes mean? What do clothes represent? Open it up, unmute yourself, make a suggestion.
Well, start with Eden,
Gan Eden, fantastic. Clothes started with Gan Eden.
and they represented, it was after sin.
Beautiful.
Back to the shame.
Right.
On clothes. Clothes covered themselves.
Right. So let's just, very important. So what happened was, V'yu arumim, they were both naked. V'lo yitboshashu. When God created male and female, they were both naked and they were not embarrassed. That's what the Torah says. They ate from the tree and then they became embarrassed. And God was kind to them and made for them kotnot or, clothes of leather. Right? So it was almost from that point that they became sensitive to their nakedness. Okay? Okay, let's shelf Len's point, because that's a very deep concept, and we'll bring that forward. We'll work it. But any other ideas? What do clothes represent? Modesty, protection. Yeah.
I think clothes represent the outside, the physical, the they hide the inside, the spiritual, the soul.
I love that. The clothes hide the inside, the soul, the spiritual. Any other ideas?
To reflect your inner being, a reflection of who you are, either spiritually or secularly or whatever. It's a reflection of who you are.
Nice. They reflect who you are. Very, very true. Any other concepts, ideas?
They can be interpreted as a measure of social status.
Social status, great. What else do they represent besides for social status?
Your sexual identity.
You're trying to get me into trouble. I'm not going there. I'm not going there. Continue.
Not so much anymore.
Any other ideas, everyone?
Your personality, I mean,
Personality. Yeah,
that's
where's
right.
my wife? Is she not on here?
right, because she's got a
Where
lot
is
of
she?
color and personality, and
Got a lot
that's
to
exactly
say
what I
about
thought of.
clothes. That's right.
Location.
Location. Vocation. That's exactly what I was looking for. Right? If a pilot walks in, let's go like this. You get onto a plane and you see someone in plain clothes with a long ponytail and, dare I say, since we're in Chicago and not Portland, tattoos up his neck, walk in a ripped jeans and a t-shirt, walks into the plane. How comfortable are you that he's going to fly the plane? Clearly there is a uniform that establishes a certain sense of respect or a sense of responsibility, right? Police have a uniform.
What about rabbis?
Rabbis should have a uniform.
Military.
Military have a uniform, exactly, especially their ranks. I learned that there are 4 ranks, by the way, for pilots, four ranks. One is if someone walks in with one thing, whatever it's called, he's not going to be flying the plane. He's in training. 2 is a junior. 3 is able to be a captain when the captain is not around, and 4 is full-on captain. So there you go. I didn't know that. I learned it tonight. I was looking up what pilots. I was trying to find out whether pilots have to wear a uniform in order to fly, and that they do have to wear uniform. But a uniform kind of establishes vocation, and also establishes who you are, and it gives over a certain respect, right? One of the Talmudic scholars, he called himself let me just look for the word. He says lo karati. He said, I called my coat my honor. Right? You see a person walking in with a suit, by default, you're not able to go in. A lawyer is not allowed to work in court or testify in court or to do his job in court. What's the word? Whatever. Not able to go to court without. They need to wear a jacket. They need to wear a jacket. Judge has a sense of respect, right? Your robe. It shows a sense of respect. Okay. So now we're going to focus on. So that's clothes. So she's asking about. So now we can even perhaps understand a little bit what she's asking. When a person goes into the ground, we're all the same, irrespective of what we've achieved in our life, irrespective of what we've worked in our life. She's asking, when we come back to life, when the dead are resuscitated or revived, are we going to have a standard? If someone did tremendous achievements in their life, when they come back alive, and after they pass and they come back alive, are they going to have that dignity, respect that they had beforehand? Or are we all going to be created equal? That's the first that we can just start breaking through a couple of things, right? Okay, I'm going to share my, attempt to share my screen. And we have handouts for you guys. Okay, so we're going to try and study a little bit of Kabbalah tonight and see how it goes, okay? Going to study a bit of Kabbalah tonight. Participants can now see your screen. Some reason that became small. Okay. Here goes. We have different ladders, we call it the ladders of Kabbalah, and they're different. This world is a world of orderly. This world is organized. This world is a world that is defined. There is order in the world, and if there is order in the physical world, how much more so is the order in the spiritual world? Okay, so what we're going to try and understand a couple of things over here is to understand these different orders that function in the world, in the spiritual world, and how they attach to different aspects, okay? So we have in the first column over here, Yud, He, Vav, and He, and that represents the name of God. These four are basically the foundations of the name of God as it is written. And then with regards to we have Atzilut, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya is the different order of format of creation, how God created the world in different order. We also have in the orange is the fire, water, dust, and matter, dust slash matter, and water, which are the four compounds of the physical world: fire, water, dust, and water. What? No, I'm missing one. What is it? Fire, air. Fire, air. Fire, air. Fire, air, dust, and water. What's it? Eish, Ruach. Eish, Ruach, Afar, and Mayim. Perfect. Eish, Ruach, Afar, and Mayim. Fire, air, dust, and matter. And what we're going to focus on more is going to be over here. This is something that generally one doesn't get to study, and we're going to use this opportunity to like understand a little bit more what's going on over here. We have what's called the Nephesh, the Guf, the Levush, and the Heichal, the body of a person, the makeup of a human being. The makeup of a human being is made up of four parts, and we have the Nephesh, which is the soul, the spiritual part, the Guf, the physical part, the body, the Levush, which are the clothes, and the Heichal, what Heichal means the whole or the home of a person. Okay. Lo karasil ishti basi, I call my home, it gives an identity to oneself. How one's home runs, how one's home functions is also part of our identity. Okay. So each of these parts of the body actually have a counterpart. So we have the Nephesh, which is the soul, that has a counterpart. Well, let's leave the Nephesh for a moment. We have a Guf over here. Okay, we have the body. The body has a counterpart, which is a Nephesh. They're partners in the human creation, in the human body. Partners in the human body. For example, let's talk about our senses. We have person has the counterpart of a person's eyes are the ability of seeing. So we have the physical part of our body, which is the eyes. And then the deeper part is the eyesight, the ability of being able to see. The sense of sight is that partner to the eyes, which make up my ability of being able to see. There's the physical, and then there's that what it translates into. Okay, hearing, we have the ear, the power of hearing, and then we have the ear, the physical part, and then the power of hearing. So the taste buds and different parts. Okay, the partner of the body is going to be the nephesh, is going to be the spiritual part, it's going to be the soul. Okay, now we know that the soul has at least 5 aspects to it. There's the nephesh, there's the ruach, there's the neshama, there's the chaya, and the yechida. Okay, so we have, let's color this. I don't know if I can. Go. No, can't do orange. I'll do. Okay. We have the nephesh, the chaya, nephesh, the ruach, the neshama, the chaya, and the yechida. So our sages tell us the nephesh is the base most spiritual aspect, or it's the base most living part of the being, of any being. And from a nephesh perspective, we are also equal to animals, in that animals also have what's called a nephesh. Okay, the nephesh, and our sages say the nephesh is in the nephesh flows in the blood. Okay, the nephesh flows in the blood. The ruach is the ruach translates as the spirit. The spirit, from many Kabbalistic perspectives, it rests in the throat, or in this transition of or the voice box. It's what separates human beings from animals in our ability to communicate. Okay, so the Ruach will call spirit, and in truth, it's also the breath. It says, "Vayipach ba'apav nishmat chayim," and God blew into mankind a living soul. And Unkelus says, "Vayi adam l'ruach, vayi adam l'nefesh chayim." Man became a living being, and Unkelus, the classical translation or explanation of the Talmud of the Torah, he says, "Vayi adam l'ruach memalala," a speaking spirit. We became a speaking spirit. What makes mankind unique is that we become a speaking spirit. And obviously, communication is not just communication between us and one another. Our communication is great in that we have the capacity of communicating with God. That is the ability of prayer. Okay. Then the higher aspect, so we're kind of going higher. The neshama is within the brain or above the brain, in and out of the brain. It is the highest aspect of our spiritual self, which has an influence on us, which to achieve greatness. Okay, it's this capacity of trying to achieve greatness. Chaya and Yechida are beyond our capacity. I don't know. I don't really understand what it means. Chaya means a living spiritual being, which means that we are equal to angels. We say in davening, va'ofanim v'chayot hakodesh, the living spiritual aspects. So this concept of chaya is that we are great spiritual beings. And then yechida is what makes us unique, absolutely unique. We're equal in that, although we don't all look exactly the same, we all have slightly different makeup. But at the end of the day, we're all a body. We're all bodies, and one doesn't necessarily, one is not able to define what makes us unique, or what is how one differentiates one from another. Yechida is, how am I absolutely unique, right? Now, parents may know their child, but absolutely know the child from their deepest aspects. No one really knows what's really going on deep down inside. What's really driving it is not necessarily understood by any or comprehended by anyone, including ourselves. What's absolutely driving ourselves. That is called the yechida. That is what makes us absolutely unique from anyone else. Okay. So the chaya and the chida, with regards to the human body, our sages say they're not attentive, they're not connected to the human body. They're called makifin. They're surrounding. They're outside. They're not physical enough for us to have a connection to these two aspects, the chaya and the yechida. Okay. Now, everyone, have we lost everyone so far? Everyone's still with us? Kind of? Yes? Okay. Now, we spoke about partners, right? Partners, I have a physical, my physical is going to have a partner, okay? My physical identity is going to have a partner. My different physical parts of myself are going to have a spiritual aspect to it. I'm going to have a spiritual aspect. For example, my sight. My eyes are the physical parts of it. My eyesight and how I interpret things are going to be the spiritual aspect, which is the partner to my eyes. Okay, and the same thing with the ears and other parts of the body. Okay, the partner, the spiritual partner of the goof, of the body, we're in the green, or the physical partner, the body. Sorry, the body is the physical aspect. Its partner is going to be the nephesh. It's going to be the soul. How do we define the soul? We're just going to leave it. It's going to be that. It's that thing that makes us unique. It's that thing that influences us. Okay. Now, we also have the levush. The levush are our clothes. Okay. And our sages tell us that the partner of the levush is the ruach. The partner of the clothes are our spirit. Okay. What does that mean? The concept of the spirit is it's an influencer to do good or to do bad. It's how we translate our wishes into the physical through the spirit. The spirit is going to have that influence. The ruach. What is a person's spirit? We try and understand where, are they a calm spirit? Are they an active spirit? Are they an angry spirit? Are they sensitive? Different energies that we exist with, right? That partner is the levush, is the clothes. Okay, which means, where am I driven towards? How am I? Where am I? What is my she'ifa? What is my drive? My drive is to, let's say, is to establish law and order. So then my clothes will be expressed as perhaps a police or perhaps a judge. If my clothes are, if my spirit is to defend the weak, my clothes may be that of an attorney, or it may be that of a health worker. Whatever that spirit is towards, that gets expressed by the clothes. So our clothes are our partner with the spirit. I just want to defend myself. I don't necessarily repeat myself. I don't necessarily understand my class.
I love what you're saying. is there then a connection with dressing sneas versus?
We're going to deal with that, the idea of dressing modestly and caring about how we dress.
Are clothes, by clothes, do you mean clothes? Or do you mean how people clothe themselves in terms of what kind of house they have, what kind of car they drive?
Good question. Are we talking about clothes, or are we talking about their possessions, the worldly possessions?
How they appear to the outside?
That is going to be described, and I think we're going to answer that question with Heichal, the next one, which is our home, and that is the neshama. Okay, so what does the neshama represent? The neshama represents going beyond doing good. The neshama is something that a person is driven beyond just doing what's right and what's wrong. Right? There are people that their drive is to do good, right? Or to defend, let's say, or heal, right? And therefore they'll become a doctor. And then there are people who are so driven beyond capacity of making a change in the world with regards to healing, and therefore their neshama is driving them, and they do beyond they go beyond the letter of the law. They do more than what normal people are capable of, right? They're the ones that create these massive campaigns of ensuring that there is a well of clean drinking water in every village in Africa. One individual, he started this. I still donate money to. One individual, he digs a well in his goal is to dig a well for every village in Africa. And it's one individual that his neshama, his deepest soul is driving beyond that, or the ones that go on these ships and the hospital ships and or whatever. And then we have the great Torah scholars that are driven to understand Torah and to completely devote every aspect of their lives. My Rabbi, okay, he's alive and he's very well, Rabbi Yitzchak Berkowitz. It is well known, okay, he has been davening nates, which is, he davens his morning prayers at sunrise. And he's been doing that from way before he's married, never missed sunrise, okay? Now, his day has been jammed from straight after Shacharis at sunrise. His day is full till late at night. Numerous classes a day, numerous shiurim a day, responsibilities, meetings. His day is full. So he's up before to daven Shacharis at sunrise. Okay, but he also needs to learn for himself. So in order for him to learn for himself, he wakes up at 2:30 a.m. every day. It's my Rebbe, alive and healthy. 2:30 a.m. every day, learning by himself. And then he davens Shacharis, and then he gets on with his day, right? And I mean, like, he could, when we were studying in yeshiva with him for our rabbinic ordination, so he could easily just, he had already run the cycle that he had prepared for us. He had already run that cycle like 4 or 6 times. I'm not sure, by the time I was there, around 4 or 6 times already run that cycle. He could have easily just given us the same source sheets and worked through those. No, every single day, new source sheet that he wrote up himself because he prepared for our class every single day. That was part of his integration. He is something that is like, there's a neshama that is driving him beyond just doing what's right. Right? That is called the neshama. Okay. Now, what's very interesting is that we have, in the spiritual perspective or in the Kabbalah perspective, we have something called the Heichal, the person's home. And Judaism gives a very strong influence, or gives a strong space. I don't have a good word, but it gives
Like a respect.
respect. It gives space for this concept of a person's home, which means, and in truth, we have a home says a lot in so many homes of strangers, right, doing circumcisions at people's homes. And I do sometimes make judgment calls about people and the personalities and their lives, and how, especially straight after birth, you can see, you can tell a lot about people with regards to how the home is and how the home is run, and where the parents are present, where the parents are not present at the home, how kids function at home, how the home looks, what is up on the wall, what art, what is being displayed, how things are organized and set up. It's not the feng shui, right? It's the representation that happens at the home. What is it, right? The default when you walk into, at least an Orthodox family's home, you'll always be able to identify it. Why? How do you identify an Orthodox family's home?
You have to walk around all the stuff on the floor.
You have to walk around all the stuff on the floor. No,
That's everyone I've ever been. It's like that.
really? How do you identify an Orthodox family's home?
By the book, by the safe.
By the Sfarim.
Or
What'd you say?
Mezuzah.
A mezuzah, you can't necessarily tell like how driven they are, but by Sfarim, you've got, they all have a set of shelves with numerous books, with numerous Torah, a Torah library in every Jewish home. It's the home, it kind of represents the deeper aspect of a person, which we have less control. You can bring in a designer and they can redesign your home, but at the end of the day, how you upkeep it and how what's driving you is going to influence how your home is set up, how it runs, how it functions. So we have the most physical part is called the guf, or the body, and that is represented, partnered with the nephesh. The second part is the levush, clothes of a person, which is almost a deeper part, which is going to be influenced by the ruach, by the spirit. Now, and then the third part, which is even deeper, is this concept of the home, the heichal, which is partnered with the neshama. Okay.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
The hierarchy of the souls, do they all include all the ones before them? For example, does the neshama include the nephesh and the ruach?
Yeah, they're all part of one big thing. Lynn, did you want to say something?
No, I'm thinking about something related to Parshat Truma, but for another time.
Okay,
And it relates to the home
the home.
and the Mishkan.
Okay,
For another time.
that's right.
Well, it has to do with the statement, I think in Talmud, that the requirement to have the Mishkan or the Mikdash, but in the time of no temple, what you're supposed to do in your home takes place of that. So I'm trying
Right.
to find the source. of
It's
that.
it's fascinating. There are many aspects, many parallels of the mikdash, of the temple, that have a place in our home. In fact, the Kodesh HaKadoshim is actually, the bedroom is known as the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Holy of Holies, parallels to a bedroom. It's actually in numerous places in the Talmud, the Kodesh HaKadoshim is referred to as the bedroom. It's a place where there's the closest connection between mankind, or the Jewish nation, and Hashem. what seems to be going on here is it seems to be working backwards. Do you understand? Like, which is something that is important for us to just bring out. We have the body, which is the most physical, and it is parallel to the nephesh, which is the most physical. And then we go through a deeper aspect, which is the ruach, which is the more spiritual, and that is represented by the levush, which are the clothes. Almost one would think that it should be the other way around, right? And this is one of the parts that I'm not 100% clear on. But if one thinks about it, we talk about a person being naked. A person who is naked, we're embarrassed when we are naked, right? Unless one is not. If one is not embarrassed, then one's not. What one is saying is that the body does not have any representation, any honor of its own accord. We cover up the body because the body has a sort of identity of its own accord. Okay, and the body is an influencer in how we live our life and how we behave from a spiritual perspective. So, in truth, the body has its own identity, and to some degree, it is, the levush, the clothes are, have a more spiritual aspect than just the naked body. The naked body is just, you just see an animalistic being. When you have clothes, then what one is showing, one's representing that there's more to just an animal going on over here. There is something greater, right? When we talk about, you'd asked about being tznius, about modesty. I'm not going through down the rabbit hole of talking about modesty from the perspective of the attraction, but what the clothes empower is to show that there is something greater than what you just see on the outside of the physical body, right? The social media world are so heavily influenced with regards to the physical body, not so much what the body is able to achieve. And it almost is very little attention is given to what we're able to achieve from a spiritual perspective. It's all about the shape of the body. But ultimately, it's a much deeper concept of this levush. Okay. Okay, so we spoke about the nephesh. We have the nephesh, which is the physical living existence of a person. And then we have the ruach, which is the person's spirit, which is the influencer of doing good or doing or bad, how we live our life. And that kind of defines us, it differentiates us from the animal world. And then we have the neshama. The neshama is that higher aspect, which is, what is that huge drive, and to where are we willing to sacrifice all of our time and our money and our energy? Where is that drive going towards? That's the neshama of a person. What is a person's deep yearning? That is the more spiritual expression of the person. Okay, and the Kabbalah, and in Kabbalah they partner them up: the nephesh with the body, the ruach with the levush, and the neshama with the heichal. Okay, so let's go back to where we started from. Cleopatra asks from Rabbi Meir. She asked him a simple, straightforward question. And I'm trying to process what is meant by behind this class. But once we know this, she's asking, we know that the dead will come alive. We understand that the dead will come alive. When they come alive, we know that the dead will come alive. As it says, they will sprout forth from the city like the blossoming from the ground. When they stand, when humans, the human being is revived, are they standing naked or are they standing with their clothes? So there's two aspects that she's asking. The first aspect is she's asking, are we talk about clothes being our kavod? It's covering our nakedness, meaning it's showing who we are. Are we going to be standing from a perspective of with dignity, with clothes, meaning if we have achieved a certain amount over here, we've yearned towards something, we've achieved our ruach, our spirit has driven us towards something. And then when we come back and are revived, are we going to be revived with that same dignity, with that honor that a person achieved in his lifetime? And perhaps what she's also asking is, what is going to be the functionality of us, of humans, after we come back alive? Are we just going to be flat, not growth oriented? Or is there going to be a ruach, a spirit that is going to be in us, that is going to be influencing us towards continued growth? Right? And that's what Rabbi Meir answered her, that when a seed sprouts forth, it sprouts forth with kernels. Wheat sprouts forth with kernels. It sprouts forth with covers, with its clothes, meaning it identifies itself, I guess it gets identified through the clothes. But also perhaps what Rabbi is saying is that they're growing. We are going to be, I'm not saying that this is what he's saying, but what Rabbi is answering her is that we will continue to grow as human beings after we come back and are revived. Okay. It's interesting what Rabbi Meir, he actually answered her. He said, the righteous, he doesn't necessarily say that everyone is going to be coming back alive. He says the righteous who are buried with their clothes, when they come back, they will, how much more, when they're buried with the clothes, how much more so they will come back alive with their clothes. He's almost talking about that they're buried with their clothes, and that there is a certain dignity that comes with the righteous when they're buried. There's an honor that is attributed to righteous when they are buried. So when they come back alive, they come back alive with that same dignity and honor. Okay, we're almost finished.
So, to take the analogy of your three parts.
Yeah.
And not to be funny about this, but you don't come back with your home.
Mm.
So it suggests, and I think it's consistent with the Rambam, who I think always thought that the physical body, after resuscitation, would get in the way of the full capability of the spiritual soul, that you don't come back with that third heart. So you get to that second level that you talked about, but not, again, you're not coming back with the home. I know it's an awkward analogy to come, because you don't bring your home with you,
Mhm.
Like your
but it's not the
possession.
full actualization of the examples you gave, like Rabbi Berkowitz, to be able to do that in the resurrected body, which I think is consistent with the Rambam's view of resurrection.
I hear.
So I think it's beautiful.
Were you guys able to hear that? No,
I could barely hear it.
you could barely hear with a mask on. We're wearing masks over here. At least some of us are. He was saying this concept that perhaps it is, since she's asking about the levush, she's specifically asking about the clothes, that it is specifically that we're coming back with the clothes, but not necessarily that heichal, not necessarily the home. It doesn't necessarily, we don't necessarily see any source that we come back with the home, with that outer expression, which you're saying is that deeper part is not going to be expressed in the world to come.
The Rambam
Yeah.
suggests, the Rambam, my understanding.
Yeah.
My understanding of the Rambam's take on resuscitation
Okay.
is that the body gets in the way of the full expression of
Over
the
here.
soul.
Right.
So the soul is burdened by the body during the time of resuscitation, which the Rambam views has a limited amount of time. You die again.
Correct.
The Rambam.
Or
So during this period, you get to what you described Kabbalistically, that second level of soul, but not the third highest.
Oh, I
form of
see.
Actualization. You
Okay.
don't-
So you're saying
Rebbe
that-
Berkowitz
yeah.
will be annoyed, perhaps.
Okay. I
if
see.
He doesn't bring his home, meaning his full capability,
Mhm.
with him when resurrected.
I see.
Because he's okay.
Okay, so you're saying that the Maimonides is saying, what Len is saying over here is that Len Rubin, he's saying that from the Maimonides perspective, when a person is revived, the body will be a burden to the spiritual capacity, and it will not enable the spiritual capacity to completely express itself.
That's what I think.
That's what
the
you think.
Rambam said.
And that's what he's saying, is that it makes sense that the neshama, which is the ultimate capacity of self-expression, is not going to be necessarily revealed or revived with the heichal, that the home is not going to be revived, which is the ultimate full expression of the self. I hear that.
Maybe.
Yeah,
It's a
I
thought.
take it. Okay. Last 2 minutes, what I want to talk about is the concept of the time periods of how things work. From Jewish tradition, we have a timeline. Okay, the time is going to be that we're going to have a period of time called the Biat HaMashiach, the coming of the Messiah, which we spoke about, that the Messiah is going to have responsibilities of building the temple, uniting the Jewish nation, enabling them to do teshuvah and repent, uplift the Jewish world from a spiritual perspective. And then when that world will be completed or will end, then God will renew this world. So 1 second. And that's where we're coming back alive. Okay? Leave it at that. That's where we're coming back alive. The Ritva, okay, so we'll come back alive in this, what we call the world to come. The world to come is a completely spiritual perspective, a completely spiritual existence, where there is no, our sages say, in the world to come, there is no, one is not, in the world to come, there is no eating or drinking, there's no procreation, no business, no jealousy, no hatred, no competition. Rather, the righteous sit and their crowns are on their head, and they enjoy from the expression of God. That is Olam Haba. And we don't know what Olam Haba is going to look like, but we know it's not going to be a physical world. It's not going to be a physical world. It's going to be a spiritual world. The Ritva, on the other hand, he says that there's going to be two parts called Tchiyat HaMetim, and he brings numerous proofs from this. The Ritva says that anyone who yearned for the coming of the Messiah, at the time of the Messiah, there will be a revival of the dead at that point in time. Okay, which means anyone who yearned for the coming of the Mashiach, he's going to actually be enabled, be empowered to experience the coming of the Mashiach, or see what happens to the world at the time of the coming of the Mashiach. Okay, and he brings numerous verses. Because God says, I will also fulfill my promise to them, to the forefathers, to give to them the land of Canaan, the land of Israel. God was speaking to Moshe in the desert after the forefathers had died. God says to Moshe, I will complete my promise to the forefathers to give them the land of Israel, which means that since they yearned for this land, then they will, from the Ritva's perspective, we will come back. They will come back. If we yearn for it, we'll come back and see the perfect world. We'll experience the perfect world. Okay, which is it gives new light. First of all, it gives new light to when we spoke about 2 weeks ago. We spoke about the song of the exile is the Ani Mamin of the coming of the Mashiach. I believe in the coming of the Mashiach. So we spoke about that there's this relationship. But it all, from the Ritva's perspective now, we have this concept that if a person believed in the coming of the Mashiach, meaning we believe in a time where the world will achieve its potential, where there will be leadership that will drive the world towards perfection in service of Hashem. When a person believes that is their ultimate yearning, then they will experience that. And that's what the Ritva says. We will, if we yearn for that, then we'll get that experience. So in that timeline, to put that timeline back into practice, what it really kind of puts us out is that there will be a coming of the Mashiach. There'll be a time period of the coming of the Mashiach, and during that bringing that world into perfection, there will be those who yearned for that time period. They will come back, and they will actually influence the world in its ability of coming to perfection. It's not going to be a simple thing to just bring the world to its fruition, to bring the world to perfection, to get the world to identify and recognize the oneness of Hashem and of the Creator, of the limitless power. They're going to come back and they're going to give that an influence. They're going to influence it to a degree, and then we'll have what we call the building of the Beis HaMikdash, bring the world to its fruition, and then we'll have what's called Olam Haba, which means that we are going to get there. There is a goal where we yearn for, and God doesn't create he's a great architect. He has a plan for us to get there, and there will be influences that will empower us to be able to get to that. And so it's so important for us to recognize these concepts, B, to yearn and to not give up on the world. And even, my wife's grandmother, she came to Portland alaiha shalom, she came to Portland. She was a survivor of Auschwitz. She came to Portland and we asked her on Pesach, we asked her did she have personal miracles? And forgive me if I told the story, but she said that there was one time where a couple new transports had not arrived. She was in the working block in Auschwitz, and there was one time that there was not a transport had not arrived, and she said all these women were moved into this block, and that block, if you moved into that block, you were sent to the gas chambers. And she said they were gathered there and they were saying goodbye, and all of a sudden a train had arrived, and a train with people, and they were told to move out, and they were able to go back. And she attributes this to, that was one time where Hashem just made an absolute miracle. She has no idea why is it. An hour later, she would have been dead. An hour later, she would have been dead. We would not exist, right? But she said that night she didn't sleep, because she heard them screaming Shema Yisrael and Ani Maamin. I believe in the coming of the Mashiach. We have two options. We have a world that is completely controllable, unbalanced, undirected, unguided. Or we have a world with great guidance and great direction. We don't understand everything. If someone with every last yearning of his being screams Ani Maamin, screams I believe in Hashem, and says the Shema, it has to be that they will come back and see the world being brought into fruition, where that final redemption comes. It has to be, from at least the Ritva's perspective, it has to be that they will come, that we will come back. And that is why it's so important for us. We know what we would like to see this world to be. We know how we would like this world to exist. We need to keep yearning and never give up, because even if on our last moments of death, we should never ever give up, because whatever that yearning, whatever that ruach is, or that neshama that is driving, even if we're not able to be successful at it or not, or see that fruition or not, that yearning doesn't stop. That once we create that yearning, that will exist forever and will influence us in being able to come back. And with that, my friends, we have attempted to complete number 13. I'm open for some questions. If anyone has, I'm not certain that I'm able to answer them, but I'll do the best that I can. And I also want to throw out that I don't necessarily have a subject for next week on what we would study. I do have an idea, but I'm open. If anyone has any suggestions, let me know. Zalman, so nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Any questions? Yes, Al.
What I don't understand, a few other things, is you work all your life to get into Olam Haba and get a good seat behind the dugout. But when you get there, you can't do mitzvahs anymore.
Right.
You can't try to get closer to Hashem. Your whole life you spend trying to build your relationship with Hashem.
Right.
But then it doesn't get any better. So it would seem to be for the people like your Rebbe, that it would be frustrating to get there and not to be able to continue the work that he did here, as opposed to just, such a wonderful blessing.
Okay, so we were talking about Olam Haba, right? The world to come, where we talk about where it's the place of reward. Okay. The place of reward.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're asking, it would seem frustrating that one's not able to continue to grow over there, that it's just a place of ultimate experience. So according to the Ramchal, according to the Ramchal, that is the goal. That is the place where we need to get to. The place where we need to get to is a place where I honestly don't have a good example of like, it's a retire. I don't know if retirement is a good example, but it's a place where everything that you worked for, it's seeing the, let's say Steve Jobs, let's say he worked all his life to finally put that iPhone together and all the technology that goes into it, seeing that and experiencing the iPhone work in its way. That is it. That is the goal. That is the ultimate goal, right? To be able to, to continue to grow. That is, I don't know. There's the way, as at least what Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, the Ramchal, the way he put it is, this is a place, and that is a place where we enjoy. And the enjoyment is ultimate connection to Hashem. Does that make sense? That is the enjoyment. The enjoyment is Tzadikim Yoshvim B'Toresem B'Roshem. The righteous are sitting, their crowns on the head, and they're just merely enjoying the spotlight of God, the Ziv Shechina, of the presence of Hashem.
So the people who are enjoying it here, and then there's people who are enjoying it here, and they cannot move up anymore.
They cannot move up, correct.
And here comes jealousy, here comes murder.
Oh,
here comes,
right. It's interesting. It's interesting that the Gemara says there's no jealousy over there. And I guess that's what the Gemara is actually dealing with. And I haven't seen it inside, but there are sources that say that you don't see each other in that world. It's all, everyone is in their own little, in their own block, right? What they call them, those
Odd.
no, in the baseball where you have your own like little suite, right?
Oh, yeah.
Everyone's got their own suite. You don't see what everyone else or what anyone else is eating or
That
whatever.
makes sense.
Any questions?
Great class.
Any suggestions for next week? Any questions? Should we leave it at that?
Great.
Thank you all for joining. I will have class next week. What I may do is I may work through some of Ari Kaplan's understanding. Oh, Ari Kaplan has got a book, and one of them is he actually goes through what happens in the world to come, what happens during the time of the coming of the Messiah and the world to come. So maybe what we'll do is just do more from a more practical perspective and understand a bit more what he has over there.
Amazing.
And be more of a discussion and to try and understand that and see some of the sources.
Awesome.
Hey, Rabbi?
Yeah.
Don't forget to mention, can you turn your speakers off? Because it's going to be verbally.